Hi everyone, it's Miss Delgado. Today is day one of our photography residency entitled The Best Part. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be learning about camera safety, camera functions, and then we're also going to be able to apply or use what we've learned today by going on a photo scavenger hunt to take some pictures. So let's just get started. So with camera safety, there are quite a few things to think about with camera safety, but I have listed, oh, got something in my eye. I have listed in a document that you'll find in the classroom, 1, 2, 3, 4 camera safety rules that you really want to consider. The most important rule, and this is even for like big time photographers, people like Miss Delgado that use expensive cameras, it's really very important to wear your wrist strap. So you all should have already received the camera with the wrist strap attached, but if not, it is definitely inside the materials bag with your camera, and it's important that you use that wrist strap when you're taking pictures, whenever you're walking around or moving around. The cameras that we're using are a little bit different than the ones that Miss Delgado uses. So the ones that Miss Delgado uses, the lens actually can come off. So if something were to happen to that particular camera lens, the entire camera wouldn't be broken. But with our cameras, the ones that we're using for this particular residency, the lens, if you notice, is attached to the camera. So if something happens to this lens, then the entire camera is broken. So please, 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 please remember to wear your wrist strap when you're going around taking pictures. The other thing to remember is to, and if we're looking at our list, following through our list, to turn off your camera before placing it down. So this really has to do, again, with protecting the camera lens, okay? And it also kind of ties into our third rule, which is do not touch the camera lens. So for those of you that don't know, this is called a lens, and this is the eye of the camera. So if something happens to this, then the whole entire camera is broken. So we want to make sure that we're paying attention to how we are using our camera and how we are protecting or not protecting this. Okay, it's a very sensitive part of the camera. So my suggestion really to you is to just keep it off if you're not taking pictures. But if you're not going to remember that, most importantly, when you're done taking pictures, or if you're in a moment of pause while taking pictures, please do not put the camera lens down on anything. Don't press it on any person or your hand. Don't put it down on a table or surface. Just make sure that it's off, that the lens is back inside its body and it's safe, and then you can go ahead and put it down if you need to. So again, wrist strap, really, really very important. Protecting that lens, protecting the eye of the camera is so important. Don't touch it. Don't rub the glass at all, because the oils from our fingers will get on there and it will make the lens foggy and the images look a little bit distorted or blurry. If you touch it, it can scratch the lens. Okay, again, if you're touching it in any way, it can really break the camera. So just please protect that. And then the last rule is it says to communicate with your subjects. So it's really important as a photographer, when you are taking pictures, especially if you're including people in your images, that you communicate with them, right? Sometimes when you're taking documentary style pictures or pictures that you would do like news image, like pictures that you'd find in a newspaper or pictures that you would find like on a magazine blog, sometimes people don't know you're photographing them, and so you're capturing that kind of in the moment feel, and that's fine. But if you're actually taking portraits, or you're taking photographs of people, or if you're engaging people to have them in your photograph, it's really important that you communicate with them, that you talk with them, that you're clear about what it is that you want them to do, whether it's look in the camera, not look in the camera, be positioned a certain way. So this way they can really make your picture strong, make your photograph the way in which you envision the image in your mind. So that's it for camera safety. So really the most important rules are to wear your wrist strap and to make sure that you're taking care of the camera, protecting that lens. Turn it off if you're not using it, turn it off if you're putting it down. Please be mindful of that. And then also to communicate with your subject. So make sure that you are telling people what it is that you want from them if you're including them in a photograph. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is camera functions. And so camera functions means basically the buttons or the things that make the camera work. There are lots of different functions and buttons, and hopefully if you looked through the introduction video, you probably either got on the digital camera guide or even looked through the camera guide that came in your kits to just kind of learn how the camera functions and how you can make the pictures more interesting. But I'm just going to go through some really basic buttons, which really overall, if you know these functions and if you know these icons that go with these functions, then you should pretty much be able to manage or use any camera, small or professional. Okay, so obviously this is the front of the camera and this is the front of the camera. Why? Because the lens comes out. This is the top of the camera. Okay, this is the back of the camera because this is the screen, right, that we look at to take photographs. And then this is the bottom of the camera. And in the introduction video, I showed you that if you had to charge your battery, you'd find that compartment here at the bottom. And again, Miss Delgado's having an issue with opening it at the bottom of the camera. All right, so at the top of the camera, you're going to find two really important buttons. The first button is the on, off, or power button. And as you can see, when you turn the camera off, the lens goes inside. When you turn the camera on, lens comes out, and the screen shows you what you're about to take a picture of. If you look at the screen, you'll also notice a few other things on the screen. And one of the most important things that I'd like for you to notice right now on the screen is the little rectangle icon in the top left corner of the screen. This is showing you your battery function. And so if this is blinking or orange, that means that your battery is not charged. As you can see in Miss Delgado's battery is fully charged. The other thing you'll notice is this L, and that L is really important. Just double check that that's always on your screen because that means that your camera is set to the highest pixels, so that when you're taking your photographs, it's going to give the highest resolution. And that's really very important, especially for the final gallery exhibit. Now, if for some reason you turn on your screen and you don't see your buttons, if you don't see those icons on your screen, you just have to press the info button on the back of the camera. If you press that, you notice how it turns it off, and now it's turning it back on. So if you press that info button, so if you turn the camera on and there aren't any words or anything on the screen, then press that info button and you'll see that the buttons are turning, the screen's showing something. Okay. Okay, so power button turns on, lens comes out, screen, you can see. The next button is the shutter button. So that is the button that takes the photograph. It also has other functions too. But right now I just want you to listen when I'm pressing the shutter button. Whoa, saw that flash? What did you notice? Do it again. So one thing, you see how I'm holding my camera. My pointer fingers are at the top, my thumbs are at the bottom, and the rest of my fingers are gripped onto the camera. That's really helping to make sure that the camera is sturdy, but it's also helping me with camera shake. When I'm a new photographer, or when you're a new photographer, you tend to move your camera often. Even sometimes when pressing the button, the camera naturally just kind of pushes down. And so it's really important to hold the camera strong to try to prevent any blurry types of photographs. So when I press the button, you should have heard a beep and a click. So the beep means that the camera knows what I want to take a picture of. It's focused and ready to go. and the click means that the camera took the photograph. You may notice on the back of the screen a picture of an icon of a camera that's sort of orange, and that means that the camera could possibly take a blurry picture. So just kind of keep mind of that. And if things pop up that you're having a question about, just use your guide to kind of help you with certain icons and images. The other thing that the shutter button is really great for, it's called a half press. So full press takes the picture. The half press helps the lens to focus. So if you're taking a really close-up photograph and the camera looks a little bit blurry at first, if you half press that button, you notice I'm pressing the button, but I'm not pressing it all the way down where you hear a click. I'm just kind of half pressing, and if you notice again, when the camera is sure what it is that I want to take a picture of, it's beeping, and then the click means that I've taken the picture. So the half press is also great for focusing when you're taking close-up pictures, and that's going to be important, especially when we start getting into our portrait series. The other thing that the shutter button does is it kind of helps you get out of menus. So if you're in a menu that you don't quite understand, a lot of times if you half press the shutter button, it'll help you get out of that menu and bring you back to the picture taking screen. But if all else fails, you can also, if you're in a function that you're just not quite sure of and you're not able to get out even with half pressing the shutter button, just turn the camera off and that'll reset it so that when you turn it back on, it'll go back to picture taking mode. So far we learned about the power button, and we also learned about the shutter button. The next button is on the back of the camera, and it's called the review or playback button. It looks like basically a YouTube symbol. It's a sideways blue triangle with a square around it, and that just takes you back to your most recent image. So if you notice, I was focusing on my hands to show you how to do a half press, and you can see my hands in detail there on the screen. So this is great. This is a very important function, and this is something I suggest that you use every single time you take a picture. So if you press the shutter button, immediately afterwards, make sure you press the review button. Because at first you just want to make sure that you took the photograph, but then as you become more comfortable with taking pictures, it's important to review your images to make sure that it looks exactly how you're seeing it in your mind, right? Photography is the art of taking pictures, and so you have this vision or this visual in your mind, something that you may have seen even that inspires you, and then you're trying to recreate that in a view, in a picture. And so you want to make sure when you're pressing this review button that you're able to look back and see if this vision is coming to life on the screen, because if it isn't, then what can you do to adjust or change that? Sometimes it's just some distractions, so maybe you have to move something out of the way or ask somebody to move out of the way. Sometimes it's just the lighting, maybe something is too dark. Maybe it's the angle, so you might have to shift or move something around, okay? And we'll talk more about that on Friday with our composition lesson. Okay, so power button, shutter button, review, and playback. When you're in the review mode, if you want to scroll or look back at the images that you've taken, then you just press this circle button. It has various different symbols on it. This one has a little like person icon. You just kind of press that to the left. And then if you want to scroll or toggle forward, you'd press this lightning bolt or flash symbol to the right, okay? And then to get back to taking a picture, you would either press the playback button. I'm sorry, my camera timed out, so it looks like a black screen, but if we turn it back on and we press the playback mode, right? If we want to go back to taking a picture, then you can press the playback button again. Or if you remember, Miss Elgato talked to you about the half pressing of the shutter button, that'll take you back to taking a picture again, picture mode as well. All right, awesome. So the next function that is listed in the PowerPoint that I've provided for our lesson today is the viewfinder or screen. Okay, and so on these types of cameras, it's really big, so you're able to see lots of things. On my camera, it's actually really tiny, and I have to put my eye really close to the hole, which I prefer because it's kind of like putting blinders on a horse. It makes you more focused and pay more attention to what it is that you're bringing your eye to when you're taking a picture. But it's important to know this function because you want to make sure that you're paying attention to what's on the screen, to include the different symbols or numbers and things that come up on the screen as you learn what those mean. Delete. I would suggest keeping deleting to a minimum. Okay, so delete only when necessary, meaning like if it's a completely blurry photograph or just something that is just completely distracting. Please don't delete photographs that look like good pictures but maybe something that you just don't like, because you might not think it's a good picture, but it might be a really great photograph, and I don't want you guys to delete photographs that could really work for this residency. So just please, if you do choose to use the delete button, make sure that you're being really conscious about what you're deleting, and it only be an image that's just not worthy, right? Like just not something that we could use. So when you press the delete button, some of you have probably, or I'm sorry, you have to go into playback mode to see whatever it is that you've taken a photograph of. Then you would press the delete or trash can button. That's at the bottom, again, the back of the camera. And then it's going to give you a little words that say erase, cancel, or erase. So if you accidentally press the delete button and you don't want to erase, then you would just hit the center circle here for cancel. But if you do want to erase it, then you would toggle over to the word erase and hit that center circle for deleting. Macro function. So macro is something that is used for taking close-up pictures. Our cameras are set right now to auto. So what you'll notice is that if you get really close to something, the screen will show you that it'll change to the word auto to this flower kind of symbol. And it's kind of hard for me to show you, but when I did get close like this to the screen, the symbol did change to this macro, or like this flower tulip symbol. And that just means that the camera lens knows that you want to get closer. So it's gonna provide the information to the camera that that you're taking a closer image. So it needs to fine tune and show the details in your picture. And remember that half pressing of the shutter button is really important if you're doing a macro or close-up photograph. Flash. So when you're in your house, the flash is going to come on, but just be mindful, right? Like if you're going to be taking a picture of somebody, you probably don't want to use flash because it would really hurt their eyes, but you might need flash in certain parts of your home, especially if there's not enough light. But always remember, the best light to ever have for your photographs are natural light. So even if you're taking pictures in your home, and if you're taking pictures of people, yourself, or even things in your house, I would say bring it closer to a window or door, anywhere where there's going to be some natural light coming in. Or if you can go outside, that would also be a great way to get some really strong photographs using that natural light. But if you have to use flash, just be mindful how you're using it. So the flash button is on the back of the camera, and you see it looks like a lightning bolt symbol. It's just kind of going straight down. When you press it on the screen, it'll give you different functions like auto flash, or flash will not fire. Some cameras, depending on what setting you are, it can even tell you just flash altogether. So auto flash means that the camera will only turn the flash on when it doesn't have enough light. But if you have it on flash altogether, that means that it's just going to use flash every single time you press the button. I would say try to keep it off. So that means that it has a circle with a line through it, right? But if you need it, then you know to just turn it on to take the pictures. Okay. Again, just kind of mess around with it. All you have to do is just press it on and off. And as you start to navigate, or maybe play around with some of the other functions, you may have an option to just leave it on. But if you are choosing to do that, just be mindful of what that means, because it could possibly distort your image, meaning that it can make something really bright unnecessarily, or even really dark unnecessarily, depending on how you're holding the camera. And if you're taking a picture of a person, it could affect their eyesight or how they even look in the picture, depending on how close you might be. The last thing that I wanted to talk about is no zoom. So there is an option to zoom on the camera, but I don't want you to use it. And the reason for that is because with these cameras in particular, even though they're good cameras, when you use zoom too close, right? If you use it too much, it makes the image distorted and blurry. And you actually could see it on the screen. So I really just suggest not using it. My suggestion to you is that if you need to get closer to something, then you should just be physically bringing your body closer. Now, as a new photographer and using the camera, you might accidentally fumble around and hit the zoom screen. So if you do, I still want you to know what it is, right? It's this little tiny handle at the top by the shutter button. And if you push it all the way back, and the screen will show you, if you push it all the way in, it'll go really close and forward, and then all the way out is where you want it to be. Okay, but sometimes when you're navigating this shutter button to take the picture, your finger might accidentally move this. So if you look at your screen and it looks a little bit close up, then that's how you adjust or fix it. Okay, and remember, if you get into a menu, including the zoom, that you're not sure about, if you turn off the camera and turn it back on, it should bring you back to neutral, right? It should bring you back to the regular picture taking screen. So if it all else fails and you're in a function or menu that you just don't know what to do, just turn the camera off and then turn it back on. Okay, so that is our functions that I'm going to be talking about. I may bring up a couple of others throughout the time that we're together, but again, I really want you to work on these and make sure that you know these as best as possible. Make sure that you're paying attention to the things that are listed on your screen. And then if you want to navigate some more, then feel free to use the guide that's provided for you digitally and in your camera kit to learn more about the camera and its functions. Okay. So after you've practiced that just a bit, then we're actually going to have some fun and we're going to be able to take some pictures. So Miss Delgado provided a photo scavenger hunt checklist, okay, in the documents for our classroom. And it says, now it's time to take pictures. Look around your home. If you have a front porch, yard, or an outdoor space, you can look there too. If you're allowed and are feeling more creative, go on a photo walk within your community and look for the following to photograph. So these are the things that I'm asking for you to take pictures of. The first thing is something that has color. The second is something with a pattern. The third is something with texture. The fourth picture is your hand holding something special to you or your family. And the fifth final picture is anything you'd like to share about yourself. And then I gave some examples. I said an example of this could be your hobbies, interests, or people or things that you love the most. Okay, so let's go through the images first, and then I want to talk about our photo journal as well. So for the example of color, if you notice, the color in this photograph that Miss Delgado took is like the first thing that you see. And so when you're taking your pictures and you're going around looking for something with color, I want to make sure that you are seeing, that you're showing or displaying something really colorful, okay? And color for me, or color as I'm defining it, is something vibrant. So blues, yellows, oranges, greens, right? And if you're choosing grass for color, please make sure that it's like vibrant and that it's so obvious that it's the green of the grass that you're taking pictures of. But I also want you to be creative. I want you to really think outside the box. So really try to find something that's vibrant and colorful to take a picture of, and make sure when you're showing that color picture, well, that's the first thing that you see. The next example that I have here for pattern, if you see, a pattern is something that repeats itself, right? And so you have literal patterns like maybe blinds or cabinets, maybe your window, or even something on your door, right? Might be a literal pattern. Here in this particular example, it's a combination of literal patterns. So you see these lines in the background. And then there's an abstract pattern. So it's these, I think, peppers or tomatoes. I went to some local farm, and this was just kind of laid out, and I loved the colors, but I also loved the pattern. I loved how the peppers were just kind of laid out in this like natural kind of pattern. You even see a pattern of the peppers or tomatoes here. Texture. So when you're showing texture, again, you're showing how something feels. So you might have to get close up. And so remember, this is where that macro function comes in, and that half pressing of the button comes in, because you want to make sure that if you are showing how something feels, if you're showing detail, that it's clear and it's defined and you can see it. Okay, so make sure that you do that. This particular picture, I'm showing the texture of the soap that was carved, and even the texture, right, of the little pieces of soap that kind of fell along the side when the soap was being carved. This is a project that I was doing with my daughter for the BMA offers some free projects for families to do, and I gave that in your links in the Google Classroom, but this is a picture of that. Now this is where we get a little creative. So it says, your hand holding something special to you or your family. Okay, so this picture is actually my aunt's hands, but I want you to use your own hands. And these objects are all represent something about my dad. And so the objects that are in her hands are something special to me and also to my family. My dad was a really important part of our family. And so I was showing that there. It's a series that I did called Relics of My Father. But I really would like for your hand to be holding something special. This was the one photo that I could find as an example for right now. So that's why I chose this one. And the last thing that you're going to share as a photograph is anything you'd like to share about yourself. So this picture is a picture of a birthday cake that my daughter made for me. She made a brownie birthday cake. I just recently celebrated my 40th birthday. My 40th birthday. It wasn't a party. Well, it was a small party, but between with my daughter and I. But I just recently celebrated my 40th birthday, so that is something that I wanted to share about me. Okay, so again, you're going to be taking 5 images. Now, there's a chance you might be taking a few more, and that's fine. But I really want you to just curate or edit after you're finished the 5 strongest images for this particular assignment on your camera. So if you have pictures that are blurry or that just don't make sense or don't show the story that you're trying to tell, then I want you to go ahead and delete those. Now I want to talk about the photojournalist. So again, this is a really important piece of paper because this is going to come back to me so that I know all of the images that you've taken, and in addition, all of the images that you've taken that you liked. I realize that some of you may have some kind of means to download images, but some of you may not. And so this is the easiest way that I could think of to keep track of the photographs that you're taking for each individual lesson that we're doing. But also at the end, when I get your cameras back and see all of your photographs, I can kind of, it's like a way of us having a conversation about the images that you like, and then me looking back at the photographs and saying, oh, okay, the images, here's the image out of these particular images. This is the one that I think is the best image, okay? And it's really important to document all of your images for all of the residency days, but especially at the very end, it's really important because that's going to be the final image that's going to be printed, okay? Wanted to talk a little bit about this because after you do your scavenger hunt, so even though I've given you 5 images to take, I only want to see your top 3, right? And I know this is hard, but it's really important that when it comes to being a photographer, it's important to know how to use the camera. It's important to know how to take pictures. And then it's also really important to know how to edit. That's actually the most grueling and like hardest part about being a photographer is the editing process. So you're going to take 5 images, right? You might even take a few more, but you're going to kind of bring it down to 5 and leave those 5 on your camera. But then on this photo journal for the first day of our residency, May 20th, today, you're going to write down your top 3. So the favorites of those 5 images, you're going to write the JPEG or image number down on these 3 lines. And so let me I'm really excited to see what you guys come up with from today's scavenger hunt. Very excited to see the photographs that you guys create throughout this entire residency. I hope you got something from today's lesson. I hope that you got some understanding of functions. I hope that you got some understanding of camera safety. And then even with taking the pictures, I hope that you were able to start learning maybe what your style is like, or just how to use the camera in general, and how to kind of navigate that. Feel free to ask any questions. I will do my best to respond within a couple of hours, but if not, definitely that day. You have up till next Tuesday, I believe that's the 27th, to ask questions. For this particular day, and also for day 2. Lesson extensions. So I've already, in the Google Classroom, I have a section that's listed as lesson extensions, and there's already one that's up on the classroom for taking a photo series of pictures of lines. And so I'm going to add an additional lesson extension from this lesson today. And these are just not things that you have to do, but if you're really enjoying taking pictures, and if you want to get a little creative and add some more photographs to your mix of images that you have, then you're welcome to do that with these lesson extensions. Let's see if I'm thinking of everything. Yeah, I think that's it. So, camera safety, camera functions, our photo scavenger hunts. Hope you learned something from it. Looking forward to seeing you all on Friday. And on Friday, we'll be working on composition. So yeah, have a great day and talk to you on Friday. Bye.